How's it going, guys? So, it's Sir William of York. I'm starting this series called The Grind. So basically, the idea of this series, I'm trying to do something that's a little bit similar to those Unranked to Master series or Unranked to Challenger series from back in the day. However, I want to do it a little bit differently. Instead of just making it a montage with a little bit of voiceover, I kind of want to focus on reviewing my own gameplay, showing you guys my mistakes, showing the things that I'm doing well, right? And focus on how I'm improving over time, right? So, a little bit of background about me. I started playing League of Legends in Season 2 on an account which I deleted called Sir William of York. And what ended up happening is I developed a very unhealthy relationship with the game during COVID, right? I started to make a little bit of content. I used to stream back then, and I reached my peak rank of master for about one day. I tilted off the face of the earth. My relationship with the game devolved, and I decided I needed to take a step away from the game. I actually deleted that account, unfortunately, which is a little bit sad because I had everything unlocked, right? So the focus of this series now is to try and maintain a positive growth mindset, focus on improving incrementally over time, and to try and maintain a healthy relationship with the game. That's my goal here, right? So where we're starting from, I'm currently Diamond 2. I have a 52% win rate, right, which is nothing great. I do have a 61% win rate on my main champion. However, I definitely have some champion pool issues. As soon as I'm off Kassadin, I have a 61% win rate off Kassadin, and my overall win rate drops to 52%, which means I'm losing way over 50% of my games on other champions, right, when I do get off of Kassadin. Um, but for now, we're just going to focus on Kassadin. I'm going to walk you through these last three games that I played, which were victories. So we're starting off on a good note. However, I want to show you guys the losses too when they do come up. So what we're looking at here is Kassadin versus Akshan, and generally speaking, this is obviously a counter matchup. The goal here is to try and minimize as much as possible, and the onus is kind of on him to make a mistake, generally speaking. The nice thing going on here is this gentleman here, this Akshan player, is actually I think he's an Azir and Hui player or something like that. So he does not necessarily have the same familiarity with the matchup and the windows that I do. Other than that, I took D-Shield. Generally speaking, we want to take short trades to maximize the amount of healing we can get at a D-Shield. And if he's gonna auto us, try and stop him from proccing his passive and PTA. Those are generally speaking the goals of the matchup, so let's see how I do. Okay, so I want to do a comparison real quick to kind of show you the idea of how you want the matchup to play out when you do get the opportunity to trade back damage onto him. So level 1, like in most Kassadin matchups, you start Q. The idea being you can't do a whole lot, but you can at least use it to secure an extra CS or get a little bit of damage back onto the laner if they're trying to attack you, right? So I generally prefer to use it to drop a minion and use it to get some damage on them versus using it to secure an extra 20 gold. However, this is exactly how you want trades to look. Right, so I walk up, I Q him, auto this minion, he takes minion aggro, right? So that's another really important part of playing Kassadin. It's sitting in and around your caster minions and kind of using them as your own auto attacks. It's the best way I like to think about it. But you can see after this trade, I took a little more damage, but it's still relatively even. He has an extra 40 health over me, but I have a Doran shield. Right? So this is generally speaking how you want trades to look. Right? We let him get another auto on us, which kind of sucks. It does restart our Doran shield and we start healing. Right? Now to contrast this, we have this level 3 trade I took, and ignore my mastery emote, it's a weird tick. I just constantly emote when I'm playing. Here. So let's see, I should have timestamped that. Okay, so what we got going on here is we walk up for a minion. So this is another really thing, you very much want to dodge his Q, and the reason you want to dodge his Q is because it gives him 20% movement speed, which allows him to stay in range to proc his passive, get additional autos on you, right? So what happened right here is I walked into his face, I greeted for minions, I should have been thinking about his Q a little bit more, and he ends up getting a very nice trade on me. Right, so this is exactly what you don't want to do. In addition to that, because I let him proc his passive, aside from doing additional damage to me, it caused him to get a shield, which blocked damage from the minions, and it blocked damage from my E. So this is a good example of what not to do in this matchup. So this right here is what I would call and consider a potentially game-losing play that I didn't notice when it happened. So first of all, I remember in game, in terms of where my attention was focused, I was very focused on this wave and what was going on bot lane because I was thinking about roaming down to cover a dive. What I ended up doing here is I get shoved in, and then Akshan gets a roam timer. And I ping one missing ping, and I don't tell him to back off or anything. I should very immediately be pinging this Gwen off, right? Because everyone loses their minds when the grub spawn, and that's the first thing they go over to. They also know Gwen is topside, so it's very likely that they'll come and rotate on that. I think I was very concerned about the dive happening bot. I don't know if those pings were me, but this I did one Mia ping and called it a day, right? I should be aggressively Mia pinging, danger pinging on their heads, right? So they know what's going on and they know to back off. What ends up happening here is this Gwen who's on 100 HP or 200 HP gets collapsed on and just instantly dies, right? I guess the Akshan really had nothing to do with it. Potentially would have, right? But regardless, I think me pinging would have had the same result, right? And he wouldn't have necessarily listened, but I'm still putting my team in the best position to succeed by giving them all of the information. Okay, now this is kind of a situation that you find yourself a lot in as Kassadin, especially in these counter matchups where basically what ends up happening is the mid laner goes, oh, I can't kill him, right? He's playing too safe, so I'm just going to freeze and zone him from XP, which is 100% a good strategy to do. The only problem with perma-freezing is you lose all map pressure, right? So I will go down in EXP, I will go down in CS, however, it gives me opportunities to free roam, because I might as well not be in my lane. All I'm going to be doing is sitting there waiting to die or get ganked, right? So Kassadin is all about accepting reality. One mistake I see a lot of Kassadins do and a lot of solo laners do is they'll sit here spam ping their jungler and say, hey, come crash the wave, or hey, come help me out. And that can be a good thing, right? However, if you look at the mid jungle 2v2, it's Gwen and Kassadin versus Amumu and Akshan, right? They have hard engage. It's very difficult for Gwen to come out unless she like ults my wave or something, right? It's difficult for Gwen to come out without putting herself at risk, so in all likelihood what may happen is she shows up mid, helps me crash my wave, and then gets Flash Amumu ulted, or Akshan goes and dives on her. So rather than doing that and forcing my jungle into a bad spot, especially because Gwen just kind of wants to farm, right? What I try and do is roam bot lane, because you know, screw it, might flip it. Might as well flip it, right? I see that my bot lane's low, their bot lane's low. This is an opportunity to potentially get some kills, right? He does ping, but we get some kills going. Now, I think my target selection here was bad. I don't know. I didn't know what the sum situation was. I guess it doesn't really matter, because either way, I get a kill. But I didn't know if Karma had sums, so I sat back and focused Ashe. I also didn't want her to turn on the Janna and kill her. Now, for some reason, the Draven comes up to trade an auto attack and ends up dying, which is, you know, not the end of the world. This still ends up being better for me, and look at the result of this situation, right? Instead of sitting mid and losing CS, I go mid. I lose the CS I would have lost anyway, right? I get a kill. I am able to push out my bot laner's wave and get them out of a bad situation where they had a dive threatened on them, right? And then I can go back mid. Honestly, I don't think there's that much to learn from the rest of this game. The rest of this game is basically just me farming and allowing myself to get carried which is a skill and it's something you need to get good at, because my team ends up getting leads elsewhere, and all I essentially have to do is not throw the game, right? I don't have to, I want to avoid giving away kills needlessly to Akshan. Alright, so in this matchup, we have Kassadin versus Vel'Koz, right? So this is basically a farming matchup unless the Vel'Koz makes some massive mistake, which they can do sometimes, and you can get kills on them. But 9 times out of 10, this is just going to be a pretty chill farming matchup, right? I do the same setup I do in 99% of games where I go First Strike, Ultimate Hunter, Sudden Impact, and Refillable. The main adaptation I made in this particular game that's a little bit different from typical games that I do. One thing I've been experimenting with is Jack of all trades, but I went cash back instead of free boots. Now, this is something I like to do versus control mages, and the reason I like to do that is because control mages, especially ones like Vel'Koz, they're incredibly skill shot heavy, and waiting until 9 or 10 minutes for your free boots feels really bad. I like to get boots early in these sorts of matchups, and it completely changes the matchup. I actually utilize a strategy around Symbiotic Souls too, where I rush tier 2 boots, which you guys will see in a minute. So this is kind of a crappy situation. I don't actually see what happened to Shaco or how he ended up getting so low. I know he invaded level 1. So what actually happened? Because he didn't have... Oh, Shaco went... So he started our Raptors, and then he went all the way across the map to invade this guy. Anyway, not looking too much at what this Shaco is doing. Basically what happens is the Shaco gets first blood, he then gets very low, and he runs into Vel'Koz, which is not really much we can do about. This is kind of one of those situations where I would typically see a lot of people tilt and get upset. There's not much we can do about it. It does suck playing a melee champion and going versus a ranged champion with red buff, but all you can really do is accept reality. It's not really the end of the world, and just move on, right? Doesn't change how I play the matchup or anything. I just want to avoid auto attacks even more. Okay. So this is some dark technology that I've been doing, and I don't know if it's good, but it's certainly fun, and it helps you neutralize a lot of lading phases. So, rushing tier 2 boots versus Vel'Koz is always a pretty good strategy, just because it makes it really hard for him to land skill shots on you, especially in combination with your ultimate. However, there's a strategy that I've been using around Symbiotic Souls in matchups where I care a lot about tempo, or I want to roam a lot, or situations where I have weird bases and I want tier 2 boots. Or I'm strapped for cash, right? So the idea behind Symbiotic Souls, and the reason that I like it, isn't because of the Mobi's effect, it's literally just for the empowered recall. So Symbiotic Souls gives you the ability to take really bad trades and then just base. You can literally base on every single wave and not miss a minion if you time it correctly, right? So for one thing I'm noticing, I keep dropping into fog between waves, and I keep walking over here, and I'm walking directly into wards half the time. So one thing that I want to try and do now, especially when I hit post level 6, is get a sweeper a little bit earlier. Every time I hit level 6, level 7 on a base, just grab a sweeper, so that way I can sweep when I go into fog, right? So this is a little bit of a map awareness issue from me. Again, didn't get my sweeper, but obviously I see Xin Zhao on Dragon. I didn't pan my camera over to bot lane to see that my Senna's 1 HP. She's a level down. They're actually both a level down, and they're taking a wave right now, right? My mid laner is completely fine roaming. There's no wave in mid. And even though he's tanking Dragon, they have priority and a Soraka who can come up. Right, so ends up being a really awkward situation to where I was thinking, in my head, I felt like Shaco would win this. I wasn't looking at the bot lane, so this is 100% my bad. So I'm thinking the only way that Shaco can die is if Vel'Koz ults him. So I'm trying to focus on zoning the Vel'Koz from here. Alright, and that is what we do. But Soraka rotates up and kills him. I think we should just not have taken this fight. Honestly, I should have pinged Shaco off, because bot lane had no priority, this puts everyone in a really bad situation. So this is another potentially game-losing mistake. I mean, I think they saw Vel'Koz, right? But something I'm noticing as a pattern with me is when my laner roams, I'm not really giving my teammates the best information about it, right? So my laner roams, I think I dropped like one Mia ping. I don't think I pinged anything, actually. No, yeah, one Mia ping. That was it. When he starts roaming, I should just be pinging back, 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 right? I think we knew Xin Zhao was down there. I don't remember why, but he showed on Vision somewhere. So we know this is a 4v4. I don't I feel like they're much stronger than us, right? We have a lot of champions who scale really well, like me and Senna. I guess they also have Soraka, Smolder, Vel'Koz. But looking at the items too, Senna hasn't completed her first item. Every single person on their team except the Garen's on their first item, and I am the only person on my team. I didn't realize that at the time. I'm the only person on my team who's completed an item. The item I completed is also Rod of Ages, which is kind of not the greatest, right? So I kind of set my team up for a bad situation here, where I don't ping as aggressively as I should. I ping a couple times, right? But this is still a very dangerous 2v2. We traded 2 for 1. Could have been a lot worse because I rotated down. But I genuinely think the better play here was for me to just push mid and ping them back. Right, I can TP on it and collect the wave. But had I done that, Vel'Koz would have been completely wasting his time. Alright, and so this is kind of what I mean by Kassadin is all about picking your moment. So there was a little bit of limit testing that happened here, right? So you can see it's like 30 seconds of game time later or something like that, and I'm already level 16. What's going to happen is I'm going to do disgusting things to this Vel'Koz. I'm going to just watch. This is kind of, you know, I feel really good. Vel'Koz, it's illegal for him to be in a side lane matching me, and I want to punish it, but he's playing really safe. So what I'm going to do is drop into Fog, make it look like I'm roaming, right? And then when he walks up to get this wave, I'm ulting over this wall, and I'm just going to murder him, right? So these are the dirty things you can do on level 16 Kassadin, and there is not a lot of counterplay. And then I get to instantly base because of my special boots that I love. But yeah, that's a good example of what it is like picking your moment. And the rest of this game is just kind of me rolling over them. There's not really much learning to see here. But there's a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight up to this point. Right? This is a good example of me just murdering the Smolder, I believe. But yeah, on to the next game. This one's pretty much over. Alright, so in this game we're playing Kassadin against Hui. My understanding of the Hui matchup is it plays out very similarly to the Vel'Koz matchup. I personally feel it's a little bit harder, just because his abilities are a little bit harder to dodge, if that makes sense. But generally speaking, I have the exact same thought process. This game was very similar to last game in that it was very slow. I was just focused mostly on farming for the first 20 or so minutes. This one goes off the deep end very quick. I think this went from, I don't know, I had 0 kills until 15 minutes and I ended with 18. So this game went kind of wild. However, I still think there may be a little bit of learning value to get out of this game. I don't know, I haven't watched it yet. This is the first time I'm going through it, so let's find out. Oh, gosh. Right here is a good example of how this whole lane felt. This Quay's just doing a really good job of making me feel pressured and a little bit overwhelmed just because I'm taking so much damage. He makes me take a really early base, so I'm on 20 CS, which means I couldn't really get to my 900 gold power spike of rushing boots, right? And it makes the whole rest of the lane play out a little bit weird, because at some point I'm going to have to now take a bad base. I also instant TP'd to not miss any CS, and so now I'm sitting here chunked, which kind of sucks. So, yeah. Again, very lucky I ended up winning this game. This game could have been an absolute disaster based off of the laning phase because I was able to exert zero pressure or do anything in the matchup. This is a good example of right here of why I was having such a hard time. So what happens is on this wave he chunks me out very easily, could have been a solo kill for him, right? And then I have to base and miss this entire wave. Now I'm a little bit lucky, oops, and part of me is almost thankful I got chunked here because this Yasuo was starting to lose his mind and get very upset with our jungler because he got solo killed 3 times, which is somehow the jungle's fault. And what happened was he came to roam down mid, and he collected the entire wave. Now, the result of this is I lost a wave, however, I do think it helped get him back in the game and helped him not lose his mind. Now, I'm a Kassadin player, I'm used to being behind. If I have to drop a wave, I have to drop a wave. I also have good mental. This guy taking a wave may have saved the game from his I'm not trying to turn me getting chunked into a good thing. However, I remember thinking, I'm a little bit thankful that I got chunked so this guy could come take the wave and feel a little bit better about what's going on in the game. I want to give a little bit of credit to the Hui, right? So looking at the situation now, he's probably feeling pretty good. He's 30 CS up right now. He's completed his first item. He's a lot stronger than me. This is kind of what you want to do to Kassadin as a control mage, as long as it's allowed, right? There's an alternate universe where Bel'Veth did decide to play around mid, in which case he probably would be 0-5 right now. However, that's also not necessarily true. If their jungle tries to play around mid, it's very difficult for Bel'Veth to exist in a game with a Taliyah, because she gets murdered by her stone things. What are they called? The Unraveled Earth. But just a little bit of credit to this Hui. I mean, what's about to happen here is he's going to make me burn my flash because I EQ'd forward. Right, so he just goes, screw it, I'm going to ult ya. And he chunks me the hell out. Right? Now this is the power of Symbiotic Souls. Despite all that, I can just base and then go mid. That's why I love these boots so much. But I just wanted to give the Hui some props. He kind of destroyed me this game in the 1v1. Now, this is a little bit more of the theme of me not really pinging out waves or pinging out roams enough. Right? So that vision ping was on the enemy team. That wasn't me. I did like 1 or 2 Mia pings mid when Hui left, and I should have been aggressively pinging on my top lane, telling them to back off. Right? Now the result of this is I do get some damage on mid tower, which, for reference of how bad this lane has been going, his mid tower is literally at full HP 14 minutes, 15 minutes into the game, right? He was 40 CS up on me, and his mid tower is 100% HP. If the enemy mid tower is 100% HP, the lane has not been going well for you. So good job to Hui, but this could have been a potentially dangerous situation. I don't actually know what happens to Yasuo. I think he ends up surviving this, but there's an alternate scenario where he's not paying attention, and he just runs it down and dies to my Hui, the jungler, and the Rakan, I believe, who were all top. Let me see. Yeah, they were all top. Again, you kind of have to assume that your solo queue teammates are like babies in the sense of, everyone's kind of doing their own thing. They're all focused on what's in front of them. When my mid laner leaves, I should be like pinging on their house, on their head danger pings, and then pinging Mia pings mid. I think that would probably be the most effective way to communicate that. And I haven't been doing that consistently, and to me that just kind of shows lack of focus or laziness, right? Alright, so this is a pretty good example of what I like to do as Kassadin in the mid game. Generally speaking, you have 2 options as Kassadin or any other side laner really. You can push and whack down the tower, which I didn't realize the tower was this low. Going back, I probably would have just pushed it down. Not really, actually, because I'm worried about Vayne rotating onto me, so we're both at one item. Vayne with her ultimate and barrier can be a big problem. We can kill each other, but it's very easy for Vayne to just murder me in a side lane. I've had it happen too many times, so I'm a little wary of it. But this is kind of mid-game as Kassadin, right? So you push out the side lane, you can base, you can go take camps, you can rotate to try and put pressure and look for a kill, or you can push the side lane. In this situation, I don't feel like I win the side lane, so I opt to just kind of rotate and see if anyone goes to catch the wave. So I see Vayne show bot, which means I feel much more comfortable because I just saw Hui on the mid tower, right? I feel a lot more comfortable about going into over this wall, right? And this is kind of the point where the game starts to explode a little bit. You're going to see here, the entire rest of the game is just a montage of me killing everyone, right? But what ends up happening is I create a little bit of an unforced error. So their Yone right now is 6-3. He's their strongest member. He comes to try and respond to this, and he misplays it horribly, I think, and ends up inting kills over to us. And we end up fighting. I believe I get a kill here in a sec. Oh, I base. So this is another thing that's very powerful about these shoes, right? So you see, I have TP, which the new TP takes a little bit longer to rotate. It takes a little bit longer to channel and go through. But I have Symbiotic Souls, which means I can base very quickly and then instantly teleport. So what happened is they looked at my HP and said, oh, we didn't kill him, but he's out of the fight. We can keep fighting. And this is where the game kind of explodes, right? So what happens is I TP mid, I get a double kill, and then I kill Hui, I believe. Right? Now, the rest of this game is literally just a montage of me killing people over and over. Right? It's a little bit of limit testing, so like I just run up on this Vayne. I get chunked, but I chunk her, and it doesn't matter because I have boots. And so this is a good example of the power of this build. I do believe I complete 6 items this game, so I do want to show you. Right? And this is the power of mid-game Kassadin. Even though this Hui throttled me in the laning phase, he shouldn't be allowed to show on side waves, right? We're basically at the same itemization-wise right now. He's 2 items. I'm 2.5. My half honestly doesn't impact the 1v1 versus him at all. The main reason I got it is because I'm worried about the Yone in the side lane. He's going to have a really hard time killing me regardless, but you just kind of... This is another thing that I like to do a lot as Cass. So instead of going through the lane, one thing I like to do is I ult here, or I take a blast cone over, I go mid, I ult here, I ult here. So the reason I ult in these particular locations are you can sweep right here as you're going through. A very common warding location is Tribrush. Another very common warding location is this brush right here, this brush right here. People don't typically ward right here because it doesn't give you great information, right? You ward the entrances. So it creates a pocket of fog where a lot of times you can sneak through right along this way and then ult over here, and people will feel safe and back up into their own vision. So you can see, looking at it from his perspective, this is what the Hui sees in this situation. He's farming mid-wave, and then all of a sudden a Kassadin blast cones over the wall on his face. Right? That creates a tremendous amount of pressure, and it's an opportunity for you to pick up a lot of kills and summoner spells in the mid-game. It's something to be mindful of. Alright, this is a good example of one of the reasons I love Kassadin, and it's because he's very safe on side lane, especially later on in the game. As long as you're not an idiot with your ultimate usage, you can escape most situations. So let me show you that. So I remember sitting here thinking, because I believe Yone showed about a minute ago on the wave, I was thinking that Yone could be doing the same thing to me that I did earlier to the Smolder in the previous game where he's sitting in the brush.
So I didn't react to it quickly, and I end up getting chunked. Would have been really easy to die in this situation. But you can basically just run away, right? Probably the worst thing I could have done was try and fight that, and the reason is because I'm about to hit level 16, I have 9 stacks on my Roa, and I have a 600 gold shutdown and 22 stacks on my Medjais, right? Obviously getting kills are a wonderful thing, but the mindset at this point on Kassadin is you value your life above everything else, right? As long as you're alive, you're a threat. Even if you're the only member on your team, they still have to think about you. As soon as you die, it takes a huge load off of the enemy team's mental stack, because what happens, especially when Kassadin gets fed, is everyone starts to worry about him and constantly think about him, right? So we can see here, this is a good example of the power of late game Kassadin. So keep in mind, I'm not even 16. I actually probably should have just ulted on that. I didn't see the Tahm Kench, and that's kind of my bad. This is a good team fight. I still don't hate the decision, right? Because again, valuing your life above everything else as Kassadin. Because this team fight sucks. This team fight ends up being really good, but it would have been not good if I had traded 2 kills and I had died there. So I don't really hate the mindset. Now, this is a complete 3v1 at this point. I feel very confident that I win this because I'm very fed. I actually missed my E on everyone. That's funny. But that's just kind of the power of late game Kassadin.